What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be transforming this photo and I'm going to be showing y'all my entire retouching process. I'm going to show you how to clean up your photo and remove blemishes without sacrificing quality or removing any texture, as well as adding or fixing any features like the eye color, lashes, eyebrows, different things like that. So I hope that you stay and watch to the very end, because this video is going to be packed with a lot of information to help you improve your editing skills. So the first thing you always want to do when you're editing a photo is just kind of zoom in at different points just to kind of see what it really is that you're working with, get an idea of what you want to do with the photo. So there's a lot of tiny pimples and different things like that we're going to have to get rid of. We're going to want to fix up these shadows and these highlights. I'm also seeing some hairs under the eyebrows that are going to have to be gone, so we'll clean that up later. So here in Camera Raw, what we're going to do is play around with the exposure a little bit. So I'll just kind of like go up and down on it just to see where I like it. I'm going to lower the contrast because having it higher, it makes her more orange. So I'm going to drop this a little bit. 32% looks fine. And whenever you're editing photos, you always want to make sure the crop or the dimension of the photo is good for whatever you're going to be posting it on. So for example, if we have a landscape photo, we want to make sure it's at 16:9 if we're posting it for Instagram, because that's Instagram's dimension. Or if we're doing a portrait, you want to make sure that it's 4:5 because that's Instagram's dimension. So I'm going to put 4.5, and I want to make sure that her face is like relatively like in the middle of that middle square. So this is what it's looking like. We're gonna click OK and it's gonna upload to Photoshop. And like I said, there's a lot of tiny pimples and blemishes, so we're gonna want to get rid of those using either the clone stamp tool or the patch tool. These are the only two tools that I ever use. Some people like using the spot healing brush tool, some people like using the remover tool. I just kind of stick to only using the patch tool and the clone stamp tool because I found that they give me the best results. I mean, I posted on my Instagram, using the remover tool is going to be a lot better for like cleaning up different things like hair, because it just generates better results. But all the tools are like really good for their own thing, you know? So essentially all I'm doing is anything that like looks out of place, any pimples that stick out the most, any imperfections, anything that doesn't serve the picture purpose, I'm just removing it. You know, right now I'm using the clone stamp tool, just kind of copying areas and dragging it to a clean area. And usually when I'm cleaning up the eyebrows, what I like to do is use this polygonal tool right here, the lasso tool, and I'll just go over the eyebrow like this. So just kind of like following the line that's already there, and then using the clone stamp tool and just kind of like copying an area and just like going over that line like this, and you'll notice how it makes that line much sharper. So I'll do the same thing for here, just kind of like going over that line using the clone stamp tool and just kind of like going over that line. And then I'll do the same exact thing with this bottom line. And as for the hair, I'm using the clone stamp tool and copying a color from this green area, and then just going through and removing these like loose hairs around her head. And like I was saying earlier, using the remover tool is going to be a lot better than using the patch tool, because if I use the patch tool on her hair, it's just going to copy and generate a result that I don't want. You see how that looks very unnatural? So what I can do is I can use this removal tool and just go over like those strands of that hair, and it's gonna generate me a much cleaner result. And then I'll just go through and do the same thing for all these like crazy hairs that are in her head. And I didn't tell you guys earlier before I started this photo, I always like to add a raw image behind the image that I'm working on, just so that I can have something to refer back to throughout the edit. From here, what I'm gonna do is remove some of these shadows, because you got some like right here next to her lip. I wanna remove these shadows under her eye and different things like that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rename this layer, frequency 1 is fine. I do frequency 1, and then I'm going to duplicate that layer, holding Control J, and then I'm going to rename that one details. So it's 2 layers of the same image, just duplicates. I named one details because I'm going to remove the textures and the details from that layer. So in between these 2 layers that I duplicated, I'm going to add an empty layer, and I'm going to name this one shadows. This is the layer that we're going to color on. So what we want to do here is go to filter while we're on the details layer, and then I'm going to go down to other, and then go to high pass, click OK, and then change the blending mode to pen light, and that's going to bring it back to its original form. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to grab both of these layers using shift. So I got shadows selected, and then I'm going to hold shift and click details, and then I'm going to hold alt, and in between this layer, I'm going to clip it to that bottom layer, that frequency 1 layer. And then I'm going to grab the brush tool, make sure the flow is at 5%, and then I'm going to copy a color that I want using alt, and then just go over where I want to remove certain shadows. So here's what that is looking like now compared to before. now, before. And what I'm going to do now is merge all of those together, and then I'm going to duplicate that layer again. This one's going to be named frequency 1 again, and then I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to name this one frequency 2. So now we got frequency 1 layer, and then we got frequency 2. And I'm sure you guys heard this plenty of times before, frequency separation. And what that is going to do is smooth out her skin while also removing any imperfections or blemishes that we left behind, giving the photo a much cleaner finish and professional look. I'm gonna hide this frequency 2 layer for now and then go to the frequency 1. This is gonna be the colors layer, or low frequency. This is what people call it, the low frequency. So from here, I'm gonna go to filter, blur, and then click Gaussian blur. And then I wanna blur it just until those textures start to disappear. So 2 looks fine, but I think we're gonna do 1% looks great. And then I'm gonna go back to the frequency 2 layer, go to image, apply image, and then I want to make sure the blending mode is on add, make sure the layer is on frequency 1 so that it's clipped to that frequency 1 or the low frequency layer. And then I'm going to invert this layer. From here, I'm going to change the blend mode to linear light, and just like earlier, it's going to bring this image back to its original form, giving it that transparency. Hide the frequency 2 layer, go back to the frequency 1 layer, and then you want to change your brush to the mixing brush tool. Always make sure that your color picker is on white, and then just go over and start smoothing the skin. What I try to do is stay away from like the most detailed areas. Like I will never go over the eyes. If I have to, I'll go inside of the eye right here, just in that white area, and it's gonna smooth that out and make it much more cleaner. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm going over the cheek, and I'm just going in the direction that the face is already going in. So you don't wanna go over like this. You wanna just kind of go down like this, because if you're going like this, it's just gonna distort it. You can see that's not right. We don't want that. So I'm just kind of going back and forth, up and down, like this, blending those skin tones and those colors together, right? Go over the edge of the lip a little bit. So here's what this is looking like so far. And you don't want to only go over the face. You want to make sure you're going over the neck and the rest of her body as well. Also, I don't want to take credit for this photo. I don't want y'all thinking that I shot this. I didn't take this photo. This was from a great photographer. I'm not sure his name. I gotta link him in the description, but this is a beautiful portrait, and y'all can go follow his Instagram. The link of his information will be in the bio. So now that we've brought the details layer back, with the high frequency or the frequency 2 layer, you see what it's looking like now. It looks pretty good. This is what the photo looks like raw, and this is what it looks like now. This is what it looks like raw, and this is what it's looking like now. From here, what we're gonna do to add a lot more definition in the photo, we're gonna add 2 curves layers. One is gonna be highlights and one is gonna be shadows. This first one, I'm gonna name highlights. This next one, I'm gonna name shadows. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab this highlight point and I'm gonna bring this all the way up, and then I'm gonna use Control-I to invert it. And then I'm gonna do the same thing with the shadows layer, but I'm gonna drop this down to underexpose the photo. I'm gonna grab the brush tool, make sure that we bring the flow back up to 100%, and then I'm gonna go over, add highlights where I feel like they belong. With the shadows, you're gonna add some here on her cheekbone, some on her jawline, and then some on the bridge of her nose. Now, if you look at those highlight guidelines that we created, they look a little bit too harsh. So what we can do is we can go to the blend modes and change it to soft light, and you see how it blends a lot better with her skin tones. So when we go to blend it and feather it out like this, by going to the mask and feathering it out, it doesn't look like it's too much. It just blends perfectly with the makeup, with her skin tones. As for the shadows, we can go to the masks and feather it up, and that looks great how it is. Now what we can do to bring everything together, I'm gonna add 1 more curves layer, and then I'm gonna drag this lower point down to lower the contrast, and then drag this higher point up to increase the highlight. And what I like to do in my photos, just to kind of add a little, like, you know what I mean, like, to it, I like to take this blacks point and I drag it up, and you see, boy, look at that, man. Just like that one edit just made this photo look crazy. Like that little fadey joint, man, like it's crazy. But yeah, that pretty much sums it up. This is the before and this is after. If you enjoyed this transformation video and you feel like you learned something new, you found this video valuable, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. I'm also active a lot more on Instagram. I post videos every week. So if you want more videos, if you want more content, tutorials like this, go ahead and follow me over there, man. Appreciate you for watching, man. I'll catch y'all in the next video.